What's up, guys? Today's podcast is about my journey with poker and boiling down the 18 years experience I've had playing poker into the cliff notes, into just a few nuggets of wisdom that you can get from my journey without having to actually live those 18 years. So, I suppose the first nugget of wisdom is this anecdote. So when everybody first started playing, when the poker boom first happened, poker became really popular really quick. The internet sensation Chris Moneymaker popularized the sport, the game of poker. And suddenly every Joe Blow with the credit card would swipe his credit card and play on, what was the website back then? Absolute Poker or Ultimate Bet. So I remember working the graveyard shift and coming home at 6 a.m. and playing poker after work and not doing so well, slowly losing. And what happened was I got a book and I read the book. And literally like the next day after I read it one night and during my graveyard shift, and literally the next day I immediately started crushing. And it was ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. How can I change so quickly just from one book? Well, this was a game in its infancy, a game that just became popular and just became a thing. So everybody sucks. So it's very similar, like we talked about in our last podcast. It's like Street Fighter. If nobody knows how to play Street Fighter and I learn how to Hadouken first, and I just going Hadouken, I just keep spamming it and keeping you at range, and nobody knows how to play and nobody knows how to deal with this. I know how to Hadouken. I know one move, you know zero. I have 100% more arsenal at my disposal than you do. Well, that's what happened with this book. I read the book. Other people are just starting and just swiping their credit cards. Most of these people is their first time playing. And I have read a book. And this book just said the basics, but they're so important. And I was just crushing. As I look back at my poker timeline, that's the first one that kind of sticks out to me. The second nugget of wisdom over these years that sticks out to me is the time I lost my whole bankroll in one night. Now, it was a very small bankroll, maybe $500, but it took me a long time to build that $500 because I just wasn't very good. Yeah, sure, I had read a book, but now other people have read 10 books by the time I was a 20-year-old kid. What can I say? I just was never that good, okay? That's the cold, honest truth. Now, I lost my whole bankroll in one night. What happened? I remember playing all night, and I remember it being 6 o'clock in the morning, and I had played all night long, and I'm sitting on the tailgate of my truck, and the sun had kind of come up already, and I'm sitting on the tailgate of my truck after losing all this money and just steaming, just like upset, very upset. Now, there's nothing really in particular that happened. I just lost. I got a guy better than me beat me, and I tilted. I lost control of my emotions, and I was angry and upset. And I'm angry and upset because I'm losing. Here's the thing. I'm also losing because I'm angry and upset. Now, this is such a huge problem. It's such a huge trap. Every form of competition this happens. Guys, stop it. Don't let this happen to you. It's so obvious what's happening here. We all know what's happening when this happens. It's not good. Getting mad in competition is not good. Now, there's two major points I want to talk about from this anecdote. First of all, it's very simple. I'm losing, I get mad. I get mad because I'm losing, and then I start to lose because I'm mad. Now let me ask you this. Why do I lose because I get mad? Well, there's a scientific explanation for this, like actual cold hard data, that when you're angry, your brain electrons functioning, parts of the brain light up, all that bullshit. Okay, it's real bullshit. I can give you the scientific explanation, and I can give you the artistic explanation. I'm much more qualified to give you the artistic explanation, but let me just tell you, there is scientific data backing this. When you're angry, your monkey brain is activated. You are not thinking sophisticated strategies and intricate thought processes. You are not capable of dissecting high-level mathematics of game theory when you're angry. When you're angry, your monkey brain is working. All you're thinking about when you're angry is bashing this other hunter's face in with a rock. This other caveman stole your woman, and you want to bash his face in with a rock. This is like millions of years. This is a scientific part, millions of years of evolution programming your brain. This is how your brain works. And deep down, you guys all know this. You know this. Now, if you're playing something like basketball, some people will say, oh, well, this drives me. I play better when I'm angry. And to that I say, I think people who say that, they only have two gears. They have angry and they have super angry. And then they have, I give zero fucks. So if you're saying you play better when you're angry, that means, I think what that means is you have this gear of I'm asleep. So yeah, anything's better than asleep. And if you play angry, you're not playing very well. But if you play super angry, at least you're like a little more consistent. You have a little more energy. I'm going to give you some examples of people. We'll take basketball examples. Let's look at Russell Westbrook. That guy has angry and super angry mode. And his monkey brain is active all the time. And you may be thinking, well, Russell Westbrook's a great player. He's a great player because he has these incredible physical advantages. He can run faster than people. He can jump higher than people. How does that help you get better? Like, how can I sit here and teach you how to run faster and jump higher? Like, those edges to be had are minuscule. You're only going to be able to jump so high, no matter how hard you work at it. You're only going to be able to run so fast, no matter how hard you work at it. However, you may shoot 50% from the free throw line right now, but you can almost double that to 90%. Well, how can you do that? Well, here's one of the ways. Stop your monkey brain. Now, in contrast, let's look at someone like Steph Curry. Is his monkey brain on? Do you see him pissed off? He is so cool as a cucumber. Let's look at other players that don't really rely on athleticism. So let's take Michael Jordan and Kobe. Like, those guys are extremely athletic. A lot of their success comes from that. Let's look at players that clearly their success is coming from high amounts of skill, because that's what we're trying to teach you right now. Again, I cannot teach you to be more athletic. The results, the improvements there are minuscule. So let's look at some other players. We got Steph Curry. Who else is like cool? I mean, all these skill players that don't rely on athleticism. Steve Nash. Dude's 6'1" and is tearing up the league. Clearly, he's doing that with skill. Do you ever see Steve Nash like getting really monkey brain pissed off? No, it's not possible to compete at a high level and be angry. So I'm going to throw out some some buzzwords. And when I hear these buzzwords, for me, and whenever I learn anything, buzzwords really help me learn. You hear a buzzword, and all of a sudden there's an entire culture illuminating from this buzzword. So the first buzzword is steaming. And I first heard this in poker, like, oh, he's tilting or he's steaming. And that's just another way to say what we're talking about here. He's pissed off. And when people are pissed off, their monkey brain comes out. Well, what kind of play is a result of the monkey brain? And this is a term I heard in poker, another buzz phrase or buzzword, front door aggression. I'll say it again. Let this stick. Front door aggression. It's kind of self-explanatory, right? When your monkey brain is active, there's no sophistication to your play. You are coming in through the front door. You're not sneaking in through a window. You're not sneaking in through the back door. There's no trickiness or sophistication. It is obvious what you're doing. It is predictable. This is the most important thing when defending against someone whose monkey brain is active. They are very, very predictable. In our Russell Westbrook example, he's our opponent, in this example, it being Russell Westbrook, is going in a straight line. He's going as hard and as fast as his body will go. He's probably going to use his dominant hand. He's not going to try to like switch it up on you. He's just going to go to his best weapon. And he's going to do it again and again and again and again. In poker, this front door aggression, again, this is where I learned this term. A lot of this stuff, I learned it from poker and it transfers over to other sports and games. Front door aggression in poker is bet, c-bet. Bet, continuation bet. If I have something, I keep betting. If I have nothing, I give up. There's no like tricky, trappy, I'm going to trap him here with ace. No, dude, it's just like bet if I have something, check if I don't, keep betting if I have anything, it's. Now, I have another example of this monkey brain that really stands out to me, and it's from baseball. When I was 10 years old, I was a catcher, and my pitcher was very good. He was by far the best pitcher in the city for that age group, if not the country, because we were really good team. And we just breezed through our city. He would just strike everyone out. He was huge for his age, and no one would ever hit the ball off him. Now we get to the playoffs. Like we're playing the other teams from the state, right? Now players are much better. We're facing the cream of the crop here. And suddenly players are able to hit him. Now, this pitcher had two pitches. He had a really fast fastball and a really nasty knuckleball. And his knuckleball was nasty. Well, this team we're playing started hitting off him. And I'm thinking, man, throw that knuckleball. Throw that nasty knuckleball. Like, no fucking 10-year-olds know how to throw a knuckleball. These kids probably haven't seen a knuckleball before. Throw the knuckleball. I kept calling for it, and he wasn't throwing it. He kept just throwing as hard as he possibly could. And as a result, he was getting a lot of walks. These players knew how to hit a fastball. He wasn't painting the corners at all. It was just either wherever the ball would go, would just go fast. There would be wild pitches. He was on tilt. His monkey brain was firing. Now, if he had been thinking clearly, he would have mixed in the knuckleball. He would have painted the corners, maybe a changeup once in a while. But with that monkey brain firing, man, you just go as hard as your body will go. And as a side note of wisdom here, this was probably the biggest mistake I've made in my competitive life, was not consoling him at the time. Like, I saw all this happening, and I should have been more aggressive with him and been like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Calm down, throw the fucking knuckleball, and like looked him dead in the eye and been a leader. And I regret so much like being so passive there. Yeah, he may be the better player, but I was the better observer. I saw all this happening, and I really wish I would have consoled him in like, and been a bigger leader. So going back to contrasting this with players that don't get pissed off. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a little experiment to see if I can kind of confirm my hypothesis here. And I'm going to Google players that are like in the 50, 40, 90 club. That's the 50% from 2-point field goals, 30% from three, and 90% from the free throw line in basketball. And let's see if any of those players were known to be very fiery competitors. So it's no surprise that Kobe and MJ, these really fiery people, MJ wasn't that fiery as people make him out to be, actually. Like, he's had his moments, but actually most of the time he was kind of swaggy. It's no surprise that they're not in the 50, 40, 90 club. Again, most of their success isn't from being extremely skillful and shooting the basketball and ball handling and stuff. They were extremely athletic, extremely consistent and enthusiastic. It's no surprise that the players in the 50, 40, 90 club are not known as really like aggressive, fiery, angry people. I mean, you've got most of them are pretty, I'd say, stoic and calm players. Larry Bird, Reggie Miller is probably the one caveat, actually. I remember him to be a little bit more fiery. Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving. All these players you don't see them getting mad too often. Now, I've never been a great shooter, and I really think this is the reason why. I steam, I tilt, I get angry. I'm almost always pretty toxic competitor. Like, I'm be the first to admit it. I don't like losing. I don't like missing a shot. It doesn't take much to kind of get under my skin and get grumpy, get angry, get fiery. Now, as I examine this situation and this weakness of mine, I tend to think like, hey, it's also what makes me good. But is it really? If I'm playing against opponents who don't want it that much, then yeah, that can give me an edge against them because I'm just working harder than them. Here's the problem with me is that in the game, I want it so bad. Like, I'm giving it my all. And that can give me an edge against an opponent who's maybe doesn't care as much about the win. And that's why my intuition all these years has told me that, like, hey, that's what's making me good, is my fiery competitive spirit. To an extent, that is true. A big problem with me is that doesn't carry over to practice, though. When it comes time to study or practice, I'm not as fiery. And this has been the story of my lack of success right there in a nutshell. That's the exact reason why I have not succeeded at anything at a high level. No excuses. That is the reason I have failed at poker. I have failed at, I haven't really dedicated myself to basketball. I've just been casual. Baseball, never really continued on with it after, middle school. Video games, just nothing I've really, that's the reason. I don't have a solution for you there. But what I can say is this. At an amateur level, some people's shortcomings are that they don't care that much if they win or lose. Against those opponents, yes, your fiery competitiveness is giving you an edge. However, I believe there is a greater edge to be had by being stoic and not getting upset. Thinking at high levels and using sophisticated game theory to beat your opponent. I think the edge here is going to be much greater than against a general population rather than just outworking a few, outcompeting a few, select few who are not very competitive. If you're sitting here saying to yourself, like, I'm a fierce competitor, I'll do whatever it takes to win. Well, if that's true, then maybe part of that is calming yourself down, not getting upset, not being so fiery. And I'm sold on this. I've been around the block on this shit, man. So it's a bit of a catch-22. Let me explain. You want to win so bad, right? So you're going to give it 100%. The problem is 100% can be bad. Trying too hard can be bad. So sometimes giving 100% means dialing it back to 90%. And I've said this in the past, and I'm sticking by my guns. 80% effort, 100% of the time. If you give it 100% and fail, you're going to get mad. You're like, oh man, I gave it my all and still failed. So what happens is you do something non-optimal to recoup those losses. You compound your error. I have a perfect example of this. It's 1993. I'm 10 years old. We're on the baseball field. I'm a catcher. The batter hits the ball to the third baseman. The third baseman picks up the ground ball, throws it to first, and he throws it clear over the first baseman's head. Fuck. Now the runner's going to second. The first baseman frustratingly chases down the baseball. The runner's almost to second already. There's no chance of getting him out and stopping the play, right? Yet the first baseman tries to recoup his loss and desperately throws the baseball to second base. Now, every time you throw the ball, some percentage of the time there's going to be an error. Even if you're a professional baseball player, maybe 1% of the time you're going to make a bad throw here and the second baseman's going to miss it. Well, in this example, it's Little League. So maybe 10% of the time, this first baseman's going to throw the ball to second, and it's going to be a bad throw. Well, he's only going to get this runner out 1% of the time. So this is a terrible risk reward here. Yet the first baseman's monkey brain is active. He's frustrated, and he's trying to recoup his losses. So he throws the ball to second. It's a wild throw. It goes over the second baseman's head. Now the runner's on his way to third. And I'm watching this develop as a catcher. Now the left fielder has the ball. You see where I'm going with this? The left fielder catches the ball. The runner's almost to third base. There's not much of a chance to get him out at third and stop the play. What he should do is just hit the cutoff man and count our losses. But what does he do? He makes a desperate, frustrated attempt to get him out at third. Can you guess what happens? A poor throw. The third baseman misses the ball. The runner comes home. I remember seeing this happen throughout my Little League time 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. This happened a lot. And it was just a big lesson that has always stuck with me throughout my life. And when you're stoic, if you can remain stoic and not get upset, you're going to run the math equation here on the fly and realize hey, I'm only going to get this runner out 1% of the time. I'm going to make a bad throw 10% of the time. I'm not going to throw it. And this is just one example of this concept. And I hope you can extrapolate a lot from this anecdote, because This happens all over the place in competition. Players just compounding their errors. And you know what? I see this at the highest levels of competition. Particularly in basketball, I see them making these awful discipline errors. And this is the professional level. Oh boy, is this a spot to get an edge. Maybe he can jump higher, run faster, but I can out-discipline him and get my edge there and even the field by doing this simple shit. Anyways, I just think it's so important to be stoic, and this has been my biggest mistake as a player in any game I've played. I can remember times in poker where just like in the depths of my soul, wanting to win so bad. And there's just nothing you can do. Like, wanting gets you nowhere. Just wanting it so bad. I remember just thinking that. Those exact words, like, God, I fucking want to win so bad. And that gets you nowhere. It gets you absolutely nowhere. What I should be thinking about is strategy. Deep analytical strategy. So there's a lot of poker stories, but I think that's enough for today. Maybe I'll continue this poker journey anecdotes next time. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got some nuggets of wisdom out of it. And I'll see you next time. Bye.